If you were able to walk into a room, confident that you would be well received, seen, heard, and appreciated by others, and all it took was a few changes in how you navigate your everyday relationships, would you be willing to make those changes? It is possible to be both fully authentic and to experience the best relationships of your life. Now, here is the host of Navigating Complicated Relationships with behavior expert Michaela Gaffen Stone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Navigating Complicated Relationships. I'm your host, Michaela Gaffen Stone. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I have a whole host of certifications, but I also have nutrition certifications, and I have an everlasting curiosity for what's going on in the world. And I discovered something new to me just a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how I missed this in all the psychology stuff that I've been doing, the sociology. You would think I would find this, but what I'm talking about today is agnotology, and it is a field of study, but it's not boring, anything but. So today I have for you an eye-opening episode. I'm going to shine a spotlight again on the food industry, pharmaceutical giants, and the weight loss industry, the unholy trinity. They come into it because I'm uncovering some hidden tactics that they employ to manipulate people's perception and to hide the truth, or to at least obscure it, to make it less obvious and to sow the seeds of doubt. So there's some key things you're going to take with you from today. The truth about fad diets and quick fixes, and the knowledge that agnotology is the method that's used to persuade the public to try so many diets and so many quick fix solutions over their lifetime. Each one leaves the dieter poorer financially and convinced that they have failed the diet. Instead, the truth is the diet has failed you. So what is agnotology? Well, let me find you the definition. The definition of agnotology, or at least one of them, is it's the study of deliberate, culturally induced ignorance or doubt, typically to sell a product, to influence opinion, or to win favor, particularly through the publication of inaccurate or misleading scientific data, or disinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to call it. Now, can you imagine deliberate, culturally induced ignorance or doubt? So things are being hidden. Things are being squirreled away that's known, but you don't get to hear about it. Now, one superb example of agnotology in action, or, what would it be shorter than that? Because the ology is the study of agno. Anyway, one example of this is the cigarette industry, the tobacco industry. They hid research results for years. They kept promoting and saying that, no, cigarettes are great for you. They're fine. They help you with weight loss. They help you calm down. You look cool. They used all kinds of marketing tactics. There was one for women, specifically targeting women. You've come a long way, baby, was the tagline. And what does that make you feel? Well, if you're a woman, it's like, yeah, I'm all emancipated now. And yeah, I'm going to smoke cigarettes. It's cool. So they were doing all of that. That is agnotology in action. So when they're telling you information that's not strictly true, or not even remotely true, any of that is agnotology. Now, there's also information that's put out to counter the true information, so that people then don't know which one to believe. And they'll go with the one that's sort of presented in a very inflammatory or juicy kind of way, right? You'll go for the big message, because that's kind of how we're wired, and that's what social media does to you. It has you prepared for the sensation and not the sort of cold hard facts or the dry facts. So between the weight loss industry that tells you the fix is easy and the pharmaceutical giants that say, hey, here's a zero work medical option. Just take this message, take this medicine and everything will be fine. You can carry on doing the things you do, and this little pill will fix it for you. There's those kind of messages in the advertisement. Now, I'm not making this up. You just look at any advertisement on television that's selling you meds, and you'll see the images that you get. People are skipping through the fields, they're dancing, they're all happy, and everything's wonderful because they took this little pill, or they had this injection, or they did that thing that's medical, right? And then you march off to your doctor and say, okay, I want that thing. It's a quick fix, and life doesn't have quick fixes. But in the field of agnotology, that tells you that this is why people are putting that out there. It's intentionally leading you up the garden path, as we would say in the UK. They are distracting you and taking you in the wrong way. So medical, the idea there is that there's nothing wrong with you that a little medication won't fix, whereas lifestyle doesn't tend to get mentioned, and the food you eat doesn't tend to get mentioned. I wonder why that would be. Something to do with the pharmaceutical and the food industry being together for some sort of marketing, maybe? I'm going to say yes. So agnotology also focuses on the how and why of diverse forms of knowledge don't come up. So that would be the cigarette industry, for example, where they just weren't letting people know what the studies said. The studies linked tobacco to cancer, but they didn't want to tell you that. And of course, people are, it's not that they're not going to buy it, they're just a little less likely to. It's surprising, but people will still buy things when they know it's bad for them. And that's a whole other topic, I would say. So let's see. Some other topics that agnotology covers. Global climate change. What's really true on that? And how many times do you hear conflicting information and people shouting it down? And you have to remember, too, that on social media, there's a whole lot of bots. That they're not people, they're computer programs that are behaving, they have profiles and stuff, they're behaving like people, and they're causing all kinds of inflammation in the social network. They're trying to redirect where people think, and they're having a lot of success, I have to say, which is very depressing. Then there's military secrecy, there's environmental denialism. That's, there's nothing wrong with this planet. It's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter if we cut down all the trees. Yeah, it does. But that's where agnotology shows up. And then racial ignorance. There's an awful lot of that. And then there's my favorite area to discuss, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the holy trinity, or unholy trinity, pardon me, of the pharmaceutical industry, the diet industry, and the food industry. There's a textbook case of agnotology in action that was recently highlighted, maybe last year, in a Hulu series, and it was called Dope Sick, based on a book by the same title by Beth Macy. And in that series, you see how it takes you through the journey of the OxyContin manufacturer, Purdue Pharma, who sponsored manipulated clinical trials. And that was they manipulated them to generate a misleading conclusion that the drug wasn't addictive. Now, we all know OxyContin is actually addictive, but they encouraged doctors to write more than 68.7 million prescriptions in a year, creating a generational catastrophe under the cover of a carefully cultivated ignorance about its cause. That's agnotology. Now, I'm saying this, are you worried that, there might be a big kickback from that, a big problem? Well, ultimately, Purdue Pharma pleaded guilty to conspiracies to defraud the US and to violate the anti-kickback statute. So the family who owns Purdue Pharma were ordered to pay, I think it was up to $6 billion to resolve the widespread litigation that they fueled the opioid epidemic. So that's kind of fascinating, right? I've already mentioned the tobacco industry, but what about the food industries or vaccine? Now, I'm not going with the recent pandemic because I'm not going to talk about that so much, because we can see the doubt and we can see the conflicting stories about that. That is a very current example of agnotology, right? I mean, do you know what you think about the COVID vaccine? All right. And then why do you think that? Where did that information come from? What kind of news do you follow? And do they give you other opinions or different sort of information? They don't. None of them do. They all have their view. So unless you sort of look at different sources, you're going to get one very heavily biased source, whichever one it is. And that causes problems because this person's heard this thing, that person's had that thing, and they argue because they both think they're right. But are either of them right? Or is the truth a third thing? We don't know, right? There's so much out there about that vaccine that we don't even know. We still don't know, truth to tell. But the vaccines I'm talking about are the misinformation about early vaccines that have been around for a long time. There's a story that just won't go away, and it astonishes me. But the story about vaccines cause autism. Come on, people. Seriously. No, it doesn't. The vaccines have been around for a very long time, and the rise in autism is very different to how long those vaccines have been around for. It happens that the kids get the vaccines at the same time as that period of development is happening in the child, where signs of autism starts to show up. The one study that is used to say vaccines cause autism was by one doctor who has since been struck off for lying about the results. And yet this story persists. That is agnotology, right? That is exactly where this is happening. The story keeps getting fed, it keeps getting repeated. And if you hear a thing often enough, you believe it. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And now that I've discovered that there's an entire study on this, we can know that this is a thing that's in common practice in front of us all the time. We are surrounded by it. Isn't that wild? I mean, the study of agnotology is so important because it highlights ways in which knowledge can be used for political or economic gain. That means you're not benefiting. You're the one who's at the bottom of the pile here. But the people who are using those studies are paying for them or are just spreading stories, and they spread them often enough and then get the bots to sort of say, yeah, that's right. And then everybody believes it, right? But if you chase back that source, where did it come from? It just appeared one day. Suddenly there was a story. You heard it from somebody who said that they knew this to be true. Well, now you can think about that a little bit differently, or at least I hope you do, because there is a whole lot of stuff going on out there that is manipulating us on a daily basis. And if you can see it, you don't have to go with it. So this is why I talk about the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the diet industry. Every now and then I will bring that subject up and really go there, because they are using agnotology. They are using this system to keep people confused, to keep people not questioning. I mean, do you read your food labels? Really? Do you read them and pay attention to what's in the food? Do you look at the ingredient list and ever wonder what on earth all those things are? Like if you look at your breakfast cereal and you see trisodium phosphate in there, do you know what it is? I do. It's the thing that you clean your walls with before you paint them. And yet it's in certain cereals. You're eating that stuff. It's pretty wild. I have more for you when we come back after the break. It's coming up right now. I'm your host, Michaela Gaffen Stone, and I'm here to stir some stuff up today with a new discovery, new by me, new to me, of agnotology. What a fascinating field. Don't go away.
What if your relationships could be a source of delight instead of a source of struggle? In a world where human interactions are anything but straightforward, tuning in to Navigating Complicated Relationships with behavior expert Michaela Gaffen Stone will offer you insights, tools, and a whole new level of understanding for you to use right now. Listen for Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to mickey@gaffenstone.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Navigating Complicated Relationships, and I would like to spell it out for you a little bit. But to find me, it's Mickey, M-I-K-K-I, at Gaffen, G-A-F-F-E-N, Stone, like a rock, .com. So that's where you can email me. Let me know what you think of what you're hearing today and whether you want to learn more about this. Because frankly, I think this is such an amazing rabbit hole that I'm already sort of thinking, could I do a degree in this? I have 4. I could take a 5th one. You know, it's really interesting. So before the break, I told you that these are stories that people are being fed and manipulated by, and it's happening in so many areas. It's crazy. And some people can see it, and some people are just rolling with it, and they really don't see it. So what are the consequences of this ignorance? Well, it has far-reaching effects, right? For individuals and for society as a whole. Right, it can lead to poor decision making, lack of critical thinking skills, and a failure to understand the implications of actions or policies. This is really, really crucial, people. It will determine which way we move as a society. More people that learn about what's going on with agnotology, the better, because then they can have better decision making. Right? How can you make a good decision when you're basing what you're deciding on incomplete or incorrect information? You can't do it. You cannot make a good decision from there. It's not possible. Now, over the break, someone said in the chat, wow, I had no idea this was actually a field of study. I have to tell you, neither did I. I learned this a couple of weeks ago, and I was, first of all, elated to know that the things I've been saying are correct. There's, I have backup in a scientific field here. So that's exciting for me. But it's also really interesting to see how pervasive agnotology is in our society, right? So it can also lead to harmful beliefs and practices, discrimination, bigotry, prejudice. Take the current rise in anti-Semitism. It's risen 400%. It's risen to 1930s Nazi level. This is insane. People are screaming about a country that's the size of Rhode Island defending itself against an attack. Now, there's a whole lot of things going on there, but you are seeing in the news one side. Excuse me, you are seeing in the news one side, right? Now, think whatever you will about the conflict there, but what have Jews in the rest of the world done to deserve a rise of anti-Semitism? This doesn't happen when it comes to things like Russia and Ukraine. It didn't happen with the Rwandan situation. It didn't spread to every single person that shared something in common with that country, right? And yet, anti-Semitism is skyrocketing. Why? Because this particular fire was set and flamed by egregious misinformation. Like, it's absolutely all about the public relations information, and it's not about the facts. It's about what the news choose to show you. Do they ever show you both sides? I think not. So that is agnotology in action, and it is having profound results in the world. So whatever your opinion, I would invite you to go and learn more about the subject before you say what you think to people, because it is a very important time to understand really what's going on, or to understand that you don't know what's going on, and to just, bide your time and wait to see how things go, or go and learn about it. But spouting a misinformed or uninformed opinion is unhelpful and it's damaging. So, but that's the aim of agnotology, right? That's the whole point. Keep people confused, keep them yelling at each other, and then they're not looking at the important things. They're not looking at what's going on in their country, that's what's going on around them. They're not looking at what the food industry is doing to them. And I mention it because it's so important. This is what keeps you alive, or it's what keeps you at a level of illness that you don't even know you have. Someone going through my coaching program said to me the other day that they tried a food that we were currently taking a break from. This is a redefining your relationship with food program we're doing. And it's crucial. It's so important because you learn what different foods do to you. Anyway, this person ate a food that wasn't on the list right now and said, it tasted not as good as I thought, but the big thing was I didn't feel good afterwards. And then I realized, hey, I used to feel like this all the time and I didn't know, because you get a baseline of feeling less well than you could be, or, you have these little things going on, or maybe you have big aches and pains. Could be a big thing going on. But the key is you're used to it. So you keep eating the things that you've been eating that got you there in the first place. Why? Because you don't know that that's what happened to your food. But if you're buying stuff that's a product that's in a packet or, a box, those kinds of products, they are consumable in that you can eat them, but I don't call them edible because they're not nutritious. It's not what your body needs to keep repairing you, rebuilding you, and making more of you. So if you give your child a food that is all chemicals, and believe me, those cereals, check them out. They are chemicals. There's not a lot of real stuff in there. You might as well eat cardboard box. Personal opinion. But look on the label and you'll see all those chemicals there. You feed your child chemicals and they need to grow from that. It's not a great way for them to grow. But the manufacturers use words like healthy, all natural, all these kind of things. But, arsenic is natural. I don't know that I'd want that in my breakfast. So really think about what's happening to you. Think about the kinds of stuff that you've been told is good for you to have. And I would question, who is it good for? And actually, I'll answer myself too, so it's a rhetorical question, but the answer is, it's good for the people making money. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your longevity. The current generation is so sick and so reliant on medications that it's a sad thing. Years ago when I became a nurse, one of the things we did when we admitted patients to hospital was we would say to them, are you on any medications? And on the occasion that someone said yes, and it wasn't that frequent, we'd have to sort of look around for the forms and say, oh, okay, hang on a second, let me get all that written down. What are you taking? And, they'd frequently be sort of, well, it's my little yellow pill. They didn't really know, and we'd have to figure it out. But there'd be 2 or 3 things on that list. Now, when you go to a hospital, if you need to be admitted, they are going to say to you, what medications are you on? Now, the frame of that is, in the first place, when I said, are you on any medications? It's an open question. The frame of what medications are you on is saying you must be on some, right? And they get very skeptical if you say, no, I don't take anything. So, the expectation now is that you're on medication. Wow. Are you okay with that? I mean, do you think that that's how you want to live? Because I can tell you that the healthcare system, and pick a country seriously, the healthcare systems are overburdened because we have a huge population in this world that really isn't that sustainable. And it's certainly not sustainable with the systems we have in place. So the healthcare systems are overburdened, and they cannot give you the best information and the best advice because they just don't have time. And quite often they don't have the information. They are also subject to agnotology. They don't get told everything that you'd like them to know. And they also can't always do the things they want to do because somebody else is in charge of that. And it's usually the person counting the money, right? So there are layers here. But typically, if you follow the money, and I'm talking the big money, you'll see where the agnotology takes place, where you need to study that and discover, okay, what's driving these decisions? What's driving what they're doing to us in society? Now, how are you going to combat that? Well, here's a thing. Education. It's a crucial tool in combating ignorance and misinformation. By promoting critical thinking skills, encouraging people to question information sources. I mean, how often do you question your information sources? Do you fact check? How do you fact check? If you're asking your buddy next to you, then that's not really fact checking. That's just opinion checking. And we tend to hang out with people who have similar opinions to us. That's not really helpful. These kids can become more discerning when they're consuming information. And the education can also promote a more informed and engaged society, which is essential for a healthy democracy. But is it happening in schools? Well, there's the problem. No, it isn't. Why? Well, speaking from the place I'm at, political interference comes in and says, well, we're going to ban that book and we're going to ban that book. And they ban more books now than ever. Why? Why are they banning these books? Because they contain information, or more key, they contain thought-provoking writing that's going to have kids reading it and saying, wow, I wonder if that's true. Or wow, I see that. Or, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. It promotes thinking, and these books get banned. So, that's a whole topic in itself, but it's very problematic. If you watch the news and you're in the US, then you'll see that there are all kinds of restrictions placed on teachers as to what they can teach. And then some teachers, not necessarily in the US, but some teachers are taking it upon themselves to revise what they're teaching to suit their own understanding of facts. There was one teacher that was actually found to be teaching anti-Semitism in their school. Now, I would have thought we'd come further than that since the 30s, but apparently not. Why not? Agnotology, right there. The political interference ensures that the classroom gives kids a basic education, but it doesn't teach them to think for themselves. That's not on the teachers. They are being restricted from outside. They also only know what they're taught in teacher training college, right? And what they are able to teach given the restrictions they have. Like they have to have testing for all the kids. They have to have this no child left behind thing that they focus on as, the important thing. They're not really looking at, are we teaching these kids to think and make good decisions? And what are they basing their decisions on? Gotta tell you, a lot of it is agnotology. So on that note, we're going to go to another break, and I would love to know what you think about all of this. Yes, I'm being controversial today because this is a controversial topic and it needs to be spoken about. More people need to know that agnotology exists, what it's doing, and when we know about it, we can do something about it. So don't go away. I'll be right back after the break.
What if your relationships could be a source of delight instead of a source of struggle? In a world where human interactions are anything but straightforward, tuning in to Navigating Complicated Relationships with behavior expert Michaela Gaffen Stone will offer you insights, tools, and a whole new level of understanding for you to use right now. Listen for Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to mickey@gaffenstone.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm delighted you're still here, and I hope I am provoking an awful lot of thought for you today, because the more people that learn about the subject about agnotology, the better. This is quite remarkable stuff. Now, I'm Michaela Gaffen Stone, and I'm here to help you navigate this particular complicated relationship, which is you and the world around you and the misinformation that we're swimming in. And the way to really combat that is to search for the truth yourself in whatever you consider important, right? We can't necessarily follow every trail on every single thing that's out there, but if it's important enough to get you upset, or if it's important enough to fire you up in any other way, then it's important enough for you to start tracking your information. Where did that come from? And who said that? And what is the study they're referring to? Because sometimes studies that are referred to cover maybe 3 people or 8 people. You know, that is not enough information to say this is a full result. This is a result you can rely on. That's just not enough. You need multiple studies. You need big studies. You need to know how that study was conducted. So if it's really, really important, do the research. And research doesn't mean ask your friend or look it up on Wikipedia or something. It means more than that. Go more depth. You can certainly start there. Don't stay there. That's the key. Don't stay there. Now, there is a gentleman by the name of Robert N. Proctor, Proctor, and he has worked extensively in the field of agnotology, which I only just discovered about, and he's written a book. So if you look up the name Robert N. Proctor and put in agnotology, the book will come up for you. And a quote from him is, "We live in a world of radical ignorance, and the marvel is that any kind of truth cuts through the noise. Although for most things this is trivial, like for example the boiling point of mercury, for bigger questions, political and philosophical, the knowledge people have often comes from faith or tradition or propaganda more than anywhere else." And that's huge, because if that's where your information is coming from, it's not based on anything very solid. It's not based on anything that you can rely on to hold up. So we really need to study more and more about what's going on and how we're being manipulated. Marketing is the tool of agnotology, right? It's absolutely how does that information and that doubt and that perception shifting happen? Marketing. It's open season on the public as far as marketing is concerned. They will do their best to persuade you to buy the things or to accept this viewpoint because it serves them and it serves whoever's paying the marketer, right? They're just the tool. They're not the people who are sort of starting the whole thing. They're not the big engine. They're the fuel pipe. So, we really have a big task ahead of us. It's pretty wild. I mean, someone said in the chat during the break that, so glad this is being exposed. People need to stop buying into it. And that is key. So the better informed you are, the better that will go. Now, for Gen Alpha, which is the little kids of today, we have a lot of work to do because these kids are growing up on social media. They are getting stuck in the whole loop of quick scrolling and, quick decisions, quick images. Nothing takes very long for the current generation, the Gen Alpha generation, the littles, right? What's happening is parents who are stressed, they are overburdened, they're trying to do a bunch of things, they're trying to cope with life, and there's been a lot of stress and anxiety in our world in recent years, and now is no exception. There's a lot there. So what happens? Oh, here, have the phone or have the tablet, do this thing that will keep you occupied. And it does occupy the child. Yeah, it absolutely works. But there's a big cost. And one of the things that these kids are losing is the ability to take any time at all to think about things, to consider their options. There's no considering or thinking. There's only reaction. They're a very reactive bunch of kids. So as these children go through school, it's going to be quite the adventure for the teachers to handle them because they're already wired into very fast-paced internet network. And this is not good for the kids. It's not good for society. And it's going to be a huge problem when these kids hit the workforce. I can't even imagine what that will be like at this point. But unless we can reduce the use of social media and access to this unbridled sort of agnotology that's going on, unless we can reduce that as parents, as teachers, as society in general, we are going to have a hot mess on our hands. And that hot mess will be Gen Alpha. And it's done to them. They're learning it now as they're very little. That is problematic. And, we have a lot of kids that went through the pandemic at a crucial time in social development. So they have a lot of damage to undo where they were, kept at home because we were on lockdown. And even when they went back to school, they couldn't interact. They had to sit 6 feet apart, and they had to wear masks. It was unreal. The environment for that child, it did not help them develop their social skills or a whole bunch of other cognitive skills. It didn't help at all. It really stalled things. And our teens at the moment have the highest levels of anxiety that have been seen. Why? Pandemic is one part of it, and all the misinformation that they're getting and the constant doubt that's being thrown at them and the sort of, it's just a noise out there. I mean, how are these kids meant to function? They get very anxious, and understandably so. So what are we doing to our kids right now? We owe it to them to learn about where the manipulation is happening and how we can combat against that. It really is important. There's advertising that just misleads you. It's an easy fix. Well, if you hear that it's an easy fix in something, you can bet your bottom dollar, literally, that it isn't. There isn't one. The diet industry, and you knew I was going to go there, right? The diet industry is going to tell you, oh, lose this much in a week, lose that much, by following this restrictive diet, which, if it's a restrictive diet, it's already not going to work. You can't live like that. We live in a time where there's so much food and food products around us that it's very difficult to be told, well, you can't eat that. What's really important is to learn that you don't want to eat that and why you don't want to eat that. Because if you discover, for example, I discovered that potatoes, which, okay, that is a vegetable, but there's a lot that's happened to the potato that makes it not as good a food as you might think it. But potatoes don't sit well with me at all. They cause me all kinds of problems. So now I can look at a beautiful baked potato, and I really enjoy baked potatoes. I can look at that and say, you know what? I'm not prepared to pay the price. I don't want it because I don't want to feel that way. So that's what my coaching does, is taking you through a program that bit by bit will teach you how food feels and what it does for you. Does your energy go up? Does it go down? Do you get a little depressed when you eat that thing? Do you get hungry half an hour later? Do you get hangry? That's a big one. People who get hangry, that hungry and angry, people who've experienced that regularly, particularly, are people who are addicted to sugar. And sugar is the other white powder. Like, it literally is a problem of that magnitude. And if you're addicted to sugar, then your blood sugar is going to be jumping up and down during the day because you go for the high sugar foods. And if it's processed sugar, it's not doing you any good at all. There's no nutritional value in sugar. There's calories, yes, but as I've mentioned on previous podcasts, that's a measurement of heat. It's not a measurement of how good something is for you. So some people, like a person in the chat, can eat a lot of potatoes and they're fine. Someone else like me cannot. So my coaching program is to take you through a very carefully thought out process to discover bit by bit what foods work for you and what foods don't work for you. And along the way, you learn about the food industry and the various additives and what that does to you. And it's so important to have all of that learning. So the people that are going through my program right now, I have to say they're having a really good time. We're 6 weeks in. They've learned a lot and they've changed some of their relationship with food, such as emotional eating. Emotional eating is a thing where you go to a particular food given a certain emotion. So if you're stressed, I got to have a glass of wine. It's not actually going to help you. It's not going to change the situation that made you stressed. It's not going to fix anything, but it's an emotional response. I want that wine. Or chocolate, right? How many people go for chocolate? Or, you've gone through a breakup of some kind, or something's, just come up that's made you very emotional. Chances are it's going to be a tub of ice cream that you reach for, right? And some people have habits that they're stuck on. I have to have my coffee first thing in the morning. I can't function without X. Whatever that thing is. And I don't mean that platform that used to be Twitter, but, X being a particular food. If you can't function without that, well, that's really something interesting to discover. Like, who are you without it then? And how do you function without it? Because you will, you don't want to, but why is that? What's the association? And a lot of it is you have these emotional hungers, this sort of reach for a particular food, exactly because of the manipulation of the food industry and the stuff that they're sneaking into your food. I mean, did you know that a lot of those, you go to the store and you see those big juicy chicken breasts? A lot of those have been injected with sugar water. I mean, what? But they have. I mean, you'd have to check the source of that particular chicken breast if you can, but they're injected with sugar water because it makes it look more plump, juicy, and oh, hey, remarkably enough, it's a bit sweeter. So if you've ever wondered why pretty much everything in the US is sweet, it's because there's sugar in pretty much anything. If it's been manufactured, if it's been processed in some way, then there's every good chance there's sugar in it. I mean, it's pretty wild, right? How crazy is that? And why would they do that, do you think? I'm going to say it's because it's addictive. But that's my opinion. What do you think? We have a break coming up. I'm Michaela Gaffen Stone, your controversial host of the day, but I'm here with Navigating Complicated Relationships, and I invite you to investigate everything I'm saying. Get the book, do the research, look at the things. I'm not saying anything you can't check out for yourself. I'll see you in just a minute. We have another break. Don't go away.
What if your relationships could be a source of delight instead of a source of struggle? In a world where human interactions are anything but straightforward, tuning in to Navigating Complicated Relationships with behavior expert Michaela Gaffen Stone will offer you insights, tools, and a whole new level of understanding for you to use right now. Listen for Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Navigating Complicated Relationships with Michaela Gaffen Stone. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Mickey@gaffenstone.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm delighted you're still here. You can email me at mikki@gaffenstone. Please do email me. I'm very responsive. I will get back to you. You can also find me on Facebook, and you can find this podcast on your favorite platform. So which one do you like? Audible? Do you like iHeartRadio, Spotify? If you subscribe there, you'll never miss one of my episodes. Some of them are more controversial than others, but I don't speak anything that I don't have facts for. So that's something to consider, right? Because it would be kind of ironic if I'm giving you information that's either not complete or is sowing doubt where there doesn't need to be any. That would be me indulging in a little, agnotology. And I wouldn't do that to you. So diet industry, let's go there for a few minutes. What do you see with these diets? And how effective are they? How often do you end up on a diet? I got to tell you, my coaching program is not one of those weight loss diets. It's not something you go on and you come off. It's a journey. It's a learning experience. And along the way, you are very likely to experience more energy, weight loss if that's what you need, and you'll come out the other side knowing a whole lot more about what and why you want to eat certain things. And then you have choices. It's called food freedom. And I think that's an amazing thing. I'm here for that all day long. So if you're interested in coaching that or coaching around that, I have another group going out in May. That's what we're doing. And I am taking people for a wait list right now. So find me on Facebook or email me and let me know that you're interested, and I'll get you on that wait list and keep you informed as we go along too, because I get all kinds of cool information all the time coming in that I then will give to other people. So, if you want to be on the wait list, let me know. We're rolling out a 90-day program and it'll be in May. But the diet industry, which I don't consider myself part of, is one that's offering quick fixes. It gives you set meal plans, or you could buy it and have it delivered to you. And in the process of all of that, you learn nothing. You learn nothing about the food you're eating, where it's coming from, why you want to eat it, why you don't want to eat it. You don't learn how to make decisions. Have you heard that before today? You don't have the information. You don't have anything new. You just have a plan in front of you, or you're receiving food that if they stopped delivering it to you, you wouldn't know what to do. Chances are, and this is not astonishing, or at least it probably won't be, chances are you'll go back to eating exactly the way you were eating before, which will get you back to where you were before, plus some. And the reason people tend to add more weight after they've been on a weight loss diet is because doing all these weird restrictions or taking these supplements and so on actually messes with your metabolism. That's what slows you down. It's nothing else. It's not a natural process. It's the stuff that you're doing with these calorie counting diets, for example. They screw up your metabolism. So if you go back to eating how you were before, then your body not only says, uh-oh, here we go again, we got this chemical storm, but it also, it's concerned that you're going to starve it or do something nasty to it. So it's hanging on to everything it can. And that's your metabolism saying, no, I think I'll just hold on to this. I'm really not sure if you're going to starve me now. And that's problematic. So if you're on a cycle of diet after diet after diet, like most people are, I think every adult does this at some point, and that also is indicative of a pretty big problem, right? If you have to keep messing with what you're eating, don't you think that the food that you're consuming generally, or the food products that you're consuming, don't you think there's a problem there? Because if there wasn't, you wouldn't have the issues you have, right? Think about it. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound like something that you can see for yourself? If it is, I invite you to get off that endless treadmill of dieting and dieting and dieting, and come find me, join me in May. My current cohort will be finished in April, and then we're going to continue with the community. So they are supported, you will be supported, and you'll learn so much that you wish you knew years ago. It helps your family, it helps you, and then you can spread the word if you want to. You don't have to. That's up to you. But it won't be agnotology if you do. It'll be truth, because it's your lived experience, and you'll know exactly where things came from and why. And yes, I give you lots of sources for the information as we go along. So it's not a dry learning. It's a coaching process where you are tenderly held and supported throughout big changes with your relationship with food. So if you want to get rid of emotional eating, if you want to get rid of stress eating, then this is a great place to come. And if you have a chronic illness that has pain, well, you might find some benefit here. I can't promise it, but I can say that I've experienced some relief from aches and pains, and I do have a chronic condition that gives me aches and pains. So from that basis, I would say, why don't you talk to me about it and see if you'd like to be on the wait list and you'd like to be in the program. It's going to be a small group, just like the current one, and it'll be a wonderful journey. So that's from the diet industry. I already mentioned the pharmaceutical industry and their promotion of, no, don't worry about that. You don't have to put up with that, whatever that is. Just take this pill. But think about those symptoms that you have. Think about those things that you're taking medication for. What could they be symptoms of? And where could you fix that with a supplement, for example? Sometimes people that have restless legs, they kind of jump around when you're trying to get to sleep. Sometimes that person needs magnesium, and sometimes that person ends up on medication. I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe anything for you, but I'm just offering that as an example of question. Do you need the medication? Is it helping you, or is it covering up a symptom of a problem? Because the symptom is basically telling you your body's not happy. Something is up. You are probably feeding it something that it just can't handle. Your poor liver does a lot of detoxifying and a lot of metabolizing of food that goes in there. In other words, it turns it into nutrients and sends it out to the different parts of the body that need it. But if you're eating stuff that isn't a nutrient, but it's a chemical, your poor liver doesn't know what to do with that. So it stores it somewhere. Now, do you think if you keep storing those toxins, which is what something that's chemical and not food is, how's that going to be for you? How's your health going to be? Consider that. Contact me and join me with the 90-day program to get your health and wellness back. I invite you to email or Facebook me, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for listening to the Navigating Complicated Relationships show. Michaela returns Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, remember every relationship is a journey, and with the right tools, you can create stronger, more fulfilling connections.